And a quick review of 9. 9, we have King Shaul. He's going out on a quest, seemingly benign, basic quest. What's he doing? He's going to go look for his father's runaway donkeys. Okay. Now, the donkey theme in Sefer Shmuel and in Tanach in general is extremely important. The donkey symbolizes several things. Okay. It's not just an animal. One of the things that we're going to see very soon, it symbolizes the Judean kingship. David HaMelech has an aton. He has a donkey that he rides on, right? And anyone who's a bad guy has horses. So Judeans, their identity of the royal family was that we're not these fancy kings like the Egyptians that ride these expensive horses. We ride a donkey. It's a hardy animal. It can last a long time. It's cheaper to maintain. You'll also notice that the Absalom, for example, when he runs with he doesn't just have a chariot, which commemorates Egypt, but he has 50 men running before him to give him honor. So he has like a whole retinue of people. Whereas David HaMelech, how does he get from place to place? On a donkey. So the donkey has that image. And then over time, the donkey got another symbolic meaning. The donkey also symbolizes what else? Hamorosh el Mashiach, they say, right? The Mashiach will come riding on a donkey. Now, why would he come riding on a donkey? Because he is from the same family of David HaMelech. Now, obviously, David HaMelech is not even born yet. We don't see him here, but the imagery of the donkey has that messianic. Now it's a model of simplicity, but in the future it's going to become an image and a symbol of messianism, which is also about simplicity and pragmatism, as we're going to see soon. It's not about magic. And so Shaul is out there looking for his donkeys, and then he finds himself lost. He begins to wonder, are the donkeys really so important? Maybe my dad is going to be worried. By the way, it's not him that says that, it's the nar who's with him. So there's symbolism there too. So he's on a quest to look for property, donkey, which is a tool to transport from place to place. It gets something done, and he gets so lost in the quest to find a donkey that he loses focus. And it happens to all of us sometimes. He loses focus on what's like really important. Now, what's really important? That he returned home and that his father doesn't think that he is kidnapped or died or whatever. So you see that happening already there. And this is, in my opinion, this is also symbolic of the future of Shaul himself. He becomes king. And what does he become obsessed with? Maintaining the royal household, maintaining the kingship. But what's important is not the king itself. It's your father in heaven is worried about you. Are you still there? Are you still alive? Are you still lost? And we're going to soon see how the image is gonna play itself out. The symbol is going to play itself out in the upcoming chapter. But that's just what I wanted to point out. Another thing we saw that was interesting in chapter 9 was that when Shaul is told that he can meet the prophet, who he calls the seer, the ro'eh, right? So he sees the prophet as that, and the pasuk said that's what they call prophets, seers. They went to them, they assumed the prophet can tell the future, right? And that's what he went to him for. He's concerned that he doesn't have any money or any gift to give the prophet. So in his mind, in order to get that service of seeing, of prediction, you need to pay. So you need to pay for a religious service. That's the mindset he has. When he arrives to Shmuel, Shmuel doesn't ask him for anything, and he doesn't give him anything. Because we'll notice Shmuel, he's changing the paradigm, right? I was about to say the diagram, but he's changing the paradigm. What he does, he makes a point not to take anything, not to be caught up in corruption, or at least he tries. And it's something that nations and religions are struggling with until today, which is a connection between corruption and religion. So that's what we saw. And now we are in chapter 10. Vayikach Shmuel et pach hashemen. All right. So Shmuel takes this vial of oil. Vayitzok al rosho. He pours it on his head. Vayishakeu, and he kisses him, Vayomer, Halo ki mishachacha Adonai al nachlato lenagid. You've been anointed by God on his territory. He doesn't use the word melech, he uses the word negid. Shmuel is anti-monarchist. He does not like the term melech, he doesn't like melechim. He's like all the prophets in the Tanach. He's a visionary who sees things that nobody in his time sees. His vision will be understood and implemented much later, right? Similar to King David, similar to Moses, right? With a long history of tragically failed prophets who did not live to see their vision implemented in their times. And that's like the tragedy and the beauty of the Tanakh that we see here. So the next pasuk, yeah, that's the first known negid. All right, Sammy, you want to read pasuk, the next pasuk? Bet.
מלאכתך היום נעמדי ומשאת שני אנשים עם כחורת רחל מגבול בנימין בשמחך ואמרו אליך נמצאו התורות אשר הלכת לבקש והנה נטש אביך את דברי התלונות ודאג לכם לאמור.
So this pasuk, it's so beautifully biblical that you have this mixture of this mundane, seemingly irrelevant Judean hilltop agricultural mishap, and it mixed into that is this glorious vision of the future. You can't escape the beauty of this pasuk. And again, what is he telling him? He's telling him when you're going to leave, two people are going to be at Rachel's tomb, which is at the border of Benjamin, which is why myself and some great commentaries believe that the tomb of Rachel is not where we think the tomb of Rachel is today, because that's not on the border of Benjamin, that's in Bethlehem. That's a subject for a different point. But and when they're there, they will tell you that the donkeys have been found. The donkeys you were looking for have been found, and your father doesn't even care about them. He's like, what about my son? What about my son? So he's foreshadowing Shaul at the beginning of his coronation. The end of his coronation is being foreshadowed. The end it's like in the first pasuk. So the aton is symbolic of the kingship. Okay, it's an important thing that you use to get from place to place. The Mashiach, the anointed one, rides the aton. But the aton isn't the purpose. If you get lost in looking for the donkey, then you've missed the point. So he's telling him, your father's worried about you, not about the aton. Meaning, while you have this big administrative operation and you want to be a king and you want your son to be king and your grandson to be king, don't lose who you are. Don't lose the purpose of this whole project, right? Because your father, meaning in the symbol, maybe God, is saying, what will I do with my son? What will I do with my son being the nation of Israel, the children of Israel who are losing touch with their destiny? And it's foreshadowing what we're going to see in the future, but it's also very symbolic of what happens in our lives. Many times, individuals, we really get focused in on something that we really want to do. And maybe we want to do those things because they're important to do and because they're noble reasons for it. And then we kind of like lose the bigger picture, and we can get our whole personality kind of invested in this one aspect, and if that doesn't work, we lose everything. So just remember, your Father in heaven is saying, "What about my son? What about my son?" In all places like that, and that's the beauty of this pasuk. Let's do another pasuk. V'halafta Gimal.
ומסעו חשב שלושה אנשים עולים אל האלוהים בבית אל, אחד נושא שלושה גדיים ואחד נושא שלוש כיכרות לחם ואחד נושא נבל יין.
So again, another seemingly mundane but heavily symbolic prediction. So it's this beautiful image. You're going to be going through the mountain of Tavor on the way to Beit El, which makes sense if we say that the tomb of Rachel is not where it's commonly assumed to be, but that's a digression, right? And three men will come to you. They are going to God, Beit El. So there's a temple or a tabernacle, a bamah, right? An altar in Beit El. One is they have three things. They have three different items. There's three goats. There's three loaves of bread, two of which they're going to give you, and some wine, a bottle of wine, right? What is a jug of wine? What does this tell you?
Wine?
All of these three things. Like, what does it what does it evoke?
Nevi'im?
It evokes. So let's do the first thing. Three goats. What do goats evoke? And goats going towards it's a very obvious symbol. They're going towards where? Towards the temple. Towards not the temple, the altar. So it evokes the temple sacrifice, right? The bread sounds like lechem apanim. You have two aronot of bread, the lechem apanim, and the wine. Do we have wine in the mizbeach?
Yes. Yes.
So that seems to be what he's telling him, that the atonot are found. Don't worry. It's not your job anymore to worry about the atonot. That's not important. But look at the future. You can have the Bet HaMikdash. So Shmuel is imagining a central place of worship as opposed to the decentralized worship that you had at the time. That's kind of what he's evoking.
I'm going to throw this out here. I don't have a complete thought yet, but the Shilosha Nashim reminds me of Abraham Avinu.
The angels.
Prophetic vision, which also over there, right? The three angels came to Abraham. Or Shilosha Nashim, but also Anashim, right? The Yapech Ishachet could be Nevi'im themselves, right? But even there, in the prophecy of Abraham, he then went and prepared a meal for the Malachim.
And they're preparing a meal for him here.
Yeah,
they're giving him the meal.
This imagery also, they're preparing a meal at the Mikdash, right?
Yeah.
The prophecy of Abraham ended with Berit Ben Abitarim, where eventually, right, Geri Ezaracha, right?
Kochvei Hashamayim,
and then they're going to come back, and they're going to be a strong nation here in Eretz Yisrael, and here they're building that kingdom.
Yeah, there's definitely a similarity there. So, they'll ask how you're doing. They'll give you these two loaves of bread, and you'll take it. Then you're going to come to the hill of God, Giv'at Elohim, which is probably Beit El itself. And there you have Nitzivei Pelishtim, representatives of the Pelishtim, because at this time the Pelishtim are still in charge, were still heavily taxed. V'yikvu achasham ha'ir upagata chevel nevi'im yordim ha'bama. You'll see a group of prophets coming down from the altar, ulufnehem, nevel, v'tof, v'chalil, v'chinor, v'hema mitnabim. This is also symbolic of the future of Shaul. There's a connection between Shaul and music and prophecy. At this point, it's all very nice and beautiful, but later on, it's going to turn kind of tragic. But that's what we see in this pasuk. Sami, you want to read Vav? So the Spirit of God will rest upon you. You will prophesy, you will have nevuah, and you will become a different person. So this is like a step-by-step program that Shmuel is trying to impart onto Shaul. He says the kingdom is just level one. It's the aton. You're looking for the aton, that's okay. Once don't be obsessed with the kingdom and to have it in your family and don't like get lost in that, right? The next level above kingdom, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of having a national, like a republic, as opposed to a confederacy of tribes? So, well, the one purpose would be to defeat your enemies. And that's cool, and that's important. But defeating our enemies is just one side of the coin. There's a much greater vision. The prophet isn't just thinking about military victory. He's thinking about something much greater, the transformation of the Jewish people, the transformation of mankind. So he's telling them this: you're going to first find out that the donkey isn't so important. Okay, your father found it. Stop thinking about it. Then you're going to find out that there's a united single place of worship, like a centralized Bet HaMikdash, which will create a spiritual transformation, right? A national and spiritual transformation. And then you will find a group of prophets playing music. So that's the harmony of the music, and you'll become a different person. So the purpose of all of that is to transform you. The purpose of the kingdom and the government and the state and the Bet HaMikdash and so on, those are all tools, right? For what? To create a new paradigm of man. That's what Shmuel is trying to impart onto Shaul, right? What's that?
Most of praise was by music. They sing when or Nevi'im.
Yeah.
They sing where they're praying. They sing all praise.
Yes. So the singing and the music at this point it is also a tool to elevate the consciousness. The music itself isn't seen as something inherently sacred. It's not something that has like an inherent value other than as a tool to further elevate the consciousness of man. And that's what he's trying to impart to Shaul. But again, like all prophets, in the Tanach, most of their message kind of doesn't fully hit. It only takes time, takes maybe 1,000 years for us to understand the full impact of what they were saying. Next pasuk Zayin. No, I think it's all. No, yeah, that's Zayin, yeah. Vaya. Sorry. So once you have this prophetic, the pasuk was when these things will happen. So you'll go through this process of awareness of the important priorities in life, and then you'll have this prophetic inspiration. Then the decisions you'll make will all be better decisions. Your choices will be good choices. They will be inspired, godly choices. And then whatever you do, you'll succeed. So the key to success is to be motivated, is to have the right motivations and to be charged with a divine spirit. And the divine spirit in these words is not magic, but it comes from a process of evaluating priorities and revealing revealing the levels of the priorities and the levels of like what's important and what's not, right?
To be in the right state of mind.
To be in the right, yeah. And then your decisions will be inspired. And if you're not in that state of mind, then your decisions are not inspired, and this is like the best way for you to succeed. And go on. Beautiful reading. So, and then once all this happens, and you're going to be in the state of inspiration, you're going to see me coming down from the Gilgal with a series of sacrifices. So again, the sacrifices are not these magic acts that you do. God needs the blood, right? Like some religions believe, or that it's like so it creates some sort of spiritual reality. The sacrifices are only valuable when they're in the right state of mind, when they're done properly within the context of of all the previous things, right? When you have sensual worship, where you have awareness of priorities, where you have prophecy, all right, or at least Ruach HaKodesh. And then I will tell you what to do next. Yes.
It's like sacrifice of oneself, on midot, everything.
That's the symbolism of the sacrifice. Yeah,
Yes.
is that we're sacrificing that because you always sacrifice Adam Kriv Mikem. You have to sacrifice one of your animals. You can't sacrifice someone else's, right? You'll notice every time in Tanach when someone sacrifices another person's, even if it's from war, another person's property, it doesn't count. So there's like you say, there's a connection between giving up something of your own and then that kind of creates that mental effect that the sacrifice is supposed to create.
No, you have to sacrifice is because it's coming from you.
Yeah.
Right? Meaning God doesn't need the sacrifice. He gives us a sacrifice as a tool for because we have a need to bring God presence or to show our devotion to God in some physical way. So He gave us this mechanism to address that. But it's coming from us, not from Him. He has no need for it.
All right, Pasuk Tet.
והיה כהפנותו שכמו ללכת מעם שמואל ויהפוך לו אלוהים לב אחר ויבואו כל האותות האלה ביום ההוא.
So apparently, just from this conversation with Shmuel, and as we've seen in the previous chapter in chapter 9, that Shmuel spent hours talking to Shaul on the rooftop. Right? So they had a long interaction, and it was a very big secret. Even the Pasuk doesn't say what they spoke about. And Shmuel sends everyone away, so it's like a private conversation. So Shaul's already inspired. My assumption is that the secret that Shmuel gave Shaul was just preparing him to be able to have a prophetic vision, to have a prophetic experience. That's not something that he would be able to have if he didn't have the necessary training. And therefore, he's talking to him. They're not just chatting, right? They're not watching memes, reels. He's training him. He's trying to prepare him mentally and emotionally for this prophetic experience because that's relevant for the task at hand. And of course, as he leaves, he gets that inspiration, and all these things happen to him. Pasuk Yod.
שם הגבעתה והנה חבל נביאים לקראתו ותשמח עליו רוח אלוהים ויתנבא בתוכם.
Right, so as he gets to the hill, he sees the prophets, and he doesn't, before even interacting with them, he doesn't need to go through the whole process that they're going through. He immediately has nevuah because he's been primed and prepared by Shmuel for the last 2 days.
ויהי כל יודעו ויתמול שלשום ויראו והנה עם נביאים נקבע.
Go on. Same pasuk, no?
ויאמר העני של רעהו מה זה היה לבן קיש הגם שאול בן נביאים.
So Hagam Sha'ul b'Nevi'im is a common phrase in Hebrew now. What happens? This is an important pasuk because it sheds some light onto what was like in ancient Yehudah and ancient Israel. So basically, he gets this prophetic experience, and then everyone who knows him is surprised because apparently at that time he had people who were training to be Nevi'im. Nevi'im weren't like what we consider today the people who wrote the prophets. It was a discipline. It's like you have people who practice CrossFit, you have people who practice meditation, you have, right? People have different disciplines. So you had a type of person, they were Nevi'im, Lavdil, right? So, and then they would play music, they would get into a trance, they would meditate. Sometimes they would have nevuah, sometimes they wouldn't. Maimonides goes through great lengths describing the process in Mishneh Torah. And Shaul wasn't known to be a Navi. He was just known to be some agricultural person. And it was surprising to everyone that overnight he's a Navi. And now it's like, oh, he's a Navi. Agam Shaul ben Nevi'im. Meaning it was even then, it wasn't like the reason I'm explaining this in detail is that some people think, including some Jews, that prophecy is a gift from God, that just God like beams down prophecy on he who he chooses, not something that humans train and practice and raise themselves up to. Okay, so for example, Jeanne d'Arc, right, famous prophet of the Catholics. I think she was a Catholic, right? So she was a peasant girl, didn't know how to read, right? Didn't know how to write, had no training. And one day she reports that God spoke to her and she became a prophet and she led the French revolutionary forces to defeat the British. Now, that's one example of a concept of prophecy that it's just God chooses you and just gives you prophecy because he likes you. The approach of the Tanakh, especially in how Chazal, Rambam, Chazal see it, it's not so simple. God doesn't randomly choose a prophet. We see prophecy as as a broadcast that exists, that's being broadcast out into the world. And a prophet like kind of tunes into the broadcast. And these Bnei HaNevi'im that are playing music, and Shaul, who's like having these long overnight conversations with Shmuel, and Shmuel, when he was young, remember, and he was studying with apprenticing by Elia Cohen, right? They were training to tune in to the prophetic broadcast that exists anyway, right? And therefore, the nation, what they're saying is, like, oh, Shmuel is also one of the prophets. Not that it just happened to him. It's just surprising that someone who they didn't know him as a prophet in training just receives prophecy. That's what this pasuk shows. Yes, you had a question.
Be a Navi, someone to be Navi need to have another before to be Navi.
Yes, and we saw that he was humble. He has to be anav. He has to be chacham. Right, he has to be intelligent. Right, he has to be as inquisitive. There's a list of prerequisites for nevuah, and that's what we see here. So we see this surprise that everyone has, which shows that there was a culture of prophets in training, and that it was surprising if someone just randomly said he was a prophet. Right, unlike how prophecy is perceived in some religions. All right. Um, the okay, pasuk. I think when you're back, yeah.
ואומר ומי אביהם על כן היית למשל אדם שאול בן נביאים.
And that became well known that Shaul is one of the prophets. That was like something that people gossiped about, they spoke about until today. People are talking about that.
ויכל מתנדבות ויבוא הבמה.
So this is also the thing. He finishes prophesizing and then he goes to the bamah, which appears that to prophesize, it's not just to think about things and to say things. There's some sort of visible reaction that the body has. Like you can see someone, this guy, he's prophesizing. Okay, he's having some sort. It looks like he was having a seizure. If we saw it today, we would think he needs to go to the ER. Right? That's how it was at the time, and. And when he finishes, he goes up he finishes his nevuah. And again, it shows you another thing. So we think of prophecy as like verbal message, like every prophet, like he says things and it's recorded. But what's recorded is only the prophecies that have eternal relevance. But that's not what prophecy was about. Prophecy was an experience. And only the ones that were eternally important were recorded, and those are the Nevi'im we have. Like there were many other people that were in the Nevuah school. Some reached prophecy, some didn't. And not always did they have something coherent to say. And even the prophets that did write things down, not everything they said is that coherent either. Why is it so incoherent? Because they're having an experience that's not in this world, it's not of this world, and now they need to enunciate it. And that experience gets enunciated, it gets explained by different people during different times for different purposes and for different generations. So that's why you'll have so much variety and diversity in the words of the prophets, which again is just a tiny portion of the amount of prophecy that existed in that time. All right. So, because this prophecy, we don't know what Shaul prophesies, but he had that experience. We don't know what he heard, and maybe he couldn't tell you what he had. But they can see this guy's having nivuah right now. This guy's having prophecy. Yes. Bamah is a altar. Like bimah, similar, yeah. It's an altar that's not centralized. So a like the Bet HaMikdash is the Mizbeach, but a Mizbeach that wasn't the central altar of the nation, is called bamah.
Now we can find the good Rab, like Yenuka, they have Nevuah. We can find also in this time, in this.
So far we do not have prophets. No.
No prophet. So just little.
Since the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, and even before that, we don't accept official prophets. Prophecy can exist, but we don't accept it. So if someone claims to be a prophet, we're very suspicious about that. We don't accept those.
Not
right?
prophet, just
Inspiration.
Exactly, yes.
It's very hard to find. Yeah. And Chazon Ifratz. It's not something that's common right now. Yeah, Vayomer.
ויאמר דוד שאול אליו ולנערו אן הלכתם ויאמר לבקש את התורות ונראה כי אין ונבוא אל שמואל.
Right, so now he says Shaul's uncle, his father's brother, is out there looking for him because where are you? Where have you been? Right? So he goes, I went to look for the donkeys, and then we found Shmuel. Now he calls Shmuel by his first name. What did he call Shmuel earlier? The Ro'eh, the seer, not even the Navi. Like he had this distance. Now they're close, and now the uncle's a little suspicious. What do you mean Shmuel? He's your friend? What do you just like? No one you don't call him Shmuel, right? So what does his uncle respond? Go on. No, the Yom Dod Shaul. So he says, yeah, what did the prophet tell you? But like you can see that he misspoke. He kind of he shouldn't be calling the prophet. Like you don't call the prophet by his first name. Go on. This is very interesting. So he responds to his uncle and he tells his uncle, yes, he told him we're going to find the donkeys. And doesn't tell him about the melucha. Now, we can see this in a few ways. Shmuel seemed to be very hush-hush about it, so Shaul is being a good student. Also, we know up until now, Shaul is a very humble person, doesn't see himself as worthy, so he doesn't know how to tell his uncle that he's going to be king. It would sound ridiculous to him, right? And also, you're going to see that the way the king is supposed to arise in Israel is not going to be through being just announced by the prophet. He's going to have to prove himself in leadership before the public hears that he's king. So we don't want the king to be appointed through this like prediction of the prophet, even though the prediction of the prophet is there, right? Because we want him to, we'll see that in the future, but just notice that he's not telling anyone. So he's already, we'll see the same thing with King David. He knows he's prophet, the prophet that he's a king, the prophet knows that he's going to be king, but no one else knows. And he has to go through the process, the painful, difficult process of finding it within himself to lead people and to take risk for him to earn what God has already promised him. And that's also like something to think about, right? The fact that God promises us something doesn't mean it's going to happen. When we say we have to have faith in God, that it's just going to happen if God wants it, you still need to make it happen. If you don't make it happen on your own, then you didn't earn it, and it may not happen. Okay? So, with that thought, let's continue to Pasuk Yad Zayin.
ויצעק שמואל את העם אל אדוני המצפה.
So he gathers everyone. Yatzek means he gathers everyone through calling them, right, to the Mitzpah. Go on.
ויאמר בני ישראל, ואמר אדוני אלוהי ישראל, אנוכי העליתי את ישראל ממצרים, ואציל אתכם מיד מצרים, ומיד כל הממלכות הלא חסים אתכם.
So this is an interesting statement. So Shmuel, again, he's this prophet who he's at this point not associated with pleasant, positive, loving predictions. He's the bad cop, right? And he's telling them, I've taken you from Egypt, right? I've saved you from them and from all the other nations. This is in the book of Shoftim, all the other issues we have. You didn't read your Tet yet, right? You read your Tet?
No.
All right, your Tet.
ויום מאסתם את אלוהיכם אשר הוא מושיע לכם מכל רעותיכם ובשרותיכם ותאמרו לו כי מלך תשים עלינו ועתה התיישמו לפני אדוני לשבטיכם ולאלפיכם.
So this is very interesting because this is like a coronation ceremony, basically. And you would think it's this happy moment, it's the first coronation ceremony, but the prophet who's doing the coronation is still bitter and angry about it. And he's considering this as ma'astem, that you've despised God. Now, we discussed this in the past. How do they despise God, right? And my position on this, the way I understand it, is they despise God because they refuse to take responsibility. It's not about asking for a king. The king is a tool, okay? The government is a tool. People talk about what's the best. Should we have a democracy? Should we have a Republican form of democracy? Should we have more taxes, higher taxes, libertarianism? All these questions, those are all just tools. They're all ways of humans managing their affairs. They're not essentially good or bad. The only thing that's true or false is God. God is the only absolute truth. And therefore, people sometimes get lost in these ideologies, right? And Shmuel is as a prophet, he sees what they're asking for, and they're not asking for a good form of government. What they're asking for is melech lishoftenu v'yelech lefanenu. They're tired, they're exhausted, they're weak, and they cannot handle the enormous responsibility that God put before them, which is to run the country and to defeat their enemies and to build a good society. And they're looking for this Superman. They're looking for this figure, this larger than life, magic, charismatic person who'll be our leader, our great leader. And that is a form of idolatry. They don't understand that. They just can't handle the pressure anymore, and they're looking to instead of having faith in God, which means having faith in God also means taking the faith that God has in you and living up to it. They're not living up to the faith that God has in them, and therefore their faith is going to be on something that's not God, which is the king. And that's why it's considered despising God. Nowhere does it say that they worshipped an idol, right? We've seen other cases where they worshipped idols. It's not what they're doing, but in a way what they're doing is worse. It's a political version of worshipping an idol. It's about finding this idea or a person or charismatic figure who he's the solution to all your problems. And this is why Shmuel is so upset about it. And he's still complaining, but the people don't get it. They're just, oh, we want our king. We can't anymore, right? So this is what we're looking at, and that image of this kind of bittersweet coronation of King Shaul, it's still happening today. Till today, us humans and us Jews, we always look for these simple magical solutions to complex problems, and we don't live up to the faith that God has in us. And that is like the biggest a violation or the biggest rebellion against God, right? Because God gave you a task to do and you just can't do it. So he's disappointed. And then your father is saying, I don't care about the donkeys. Where's my son? You know? And that's this pasuk. And again, they don't get it because they're just people, and the prophet is speaking on a different wavelength. But it's up to us to understand it and to internalize this message. Yeah.
Beautiful. Just want to clarify, what does it mean to have faith in God? And we have this problem today, right? Is we have the mitzvot that the Torah.
Why don't you sit here so everyone can hear you from the microphone? I see everyone, whenever you talk, people on the screen, I see the ears getting really big.
And people ask for questions, the speaker is not working. May need to turn on the speaker on the.
No, I don't see it. There was no. If you guys have questions, post it over here, okay? And then I'll respond. I'm not going to take. I'm not going to take recorded questions. I'm just going to.
The speaker is busted since last year.
Okay. So then, if you have a question, post it.
So what does it mean to have faith in God? It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Torah, He gave us mitzvot, and we have to have faith that if we do that, we will succeed. Right? If we have a mitzvah to conquer the land, then we have to go ahead and conquer the land and have faith that will succeed and not be afraid of losing the war. Right? And this was like the big problem that we've had now. What did the people want? Instead of taking responsibility, they wanted this mythical savior to come and do everything for them, to bring the Geulah, to save the nation for them, instead of doing the work and having faith that God is going to make you succeed for following His mitzvot.
Chazak Baruch. So that's what's happening in this pasuk, and now I think we're at Yod Tet, right? No, we did Yod Tet. We're in Kaf. Yeah. Do Kaf and Kaf Aleph. Kaf and Kaf Aleph.
ויקרב שמואל את כל שבטי ישראל, וינחל שבט בנימין. ויקרב את שבט בנימין למשפחותיו, ותנחל משפחת המטרי, וינחל שאול בן קיש, ויבקשו ולא נמצא.
This is very cool. This is so cool. So now Shaul is nowhere to be found. No one knows what's happening. Shmuel is gonna anoint this king, and he starts this process of bringing the tribes, so the leaders of the people of the tribe of Binyamin. This is a big surprise to everyone, because we even saw earlier that Shaul, when Shmuel told him, "You're going to be the next king," he said, "What do you mean me? I'm from the smallest tribe." At that point, Binyamin was his lowest point, because we know what happened with Pilegesh Begiv'ah in the book of Shoftim. They were already a small tribe in the desert, but now they had a civil war. They were down just a few hundred men. The last thing he expected, anyone would expect, is to be from Binyamin. So this is a moment when everyone's just, wow, this is the most unexpected source, okay, which is continuing an ancient biblical theme, which the youngest son always usurps this assumed power of the oldest son, all right? Now, why does the oldest son have power usually? Because he's the oldest, he's the strongest, right? Whoever has an older brother knows that they have this, we have the Bechor that's in human evolution, right? The oldest son gets the birthright because it's kind of might makes right. And the biblical story is about people who are actually more worthy, overcoming that hierarchical evolutionary system and transcending it, and then actually it's the beginning of right makes might, flipping the paradigm that way. And over here again, that's happening. The smaller, weaker tribe, who no one expects it to come from him, they're the ones that's being chosen. That's already a big deal. And then the family within the tribe, the family of Matri, and then Shaul ben Kish. They're looking for Shaul, and no, they can't find him anywhere. Okay, and this is probably one of Shaul's greatest moments. Okay, because it's not just that he's scared, and it's not just that he's humble, and that he's and he takes his responsibility seriously. He doesn't want to be there because he feels, okay, maybe I was anointed, but I didn't do anything yet. So what does anointed mean? He doesn't look at it magically. He goes, I didn't earn my stripes. I didn't earn the position as the negid, as the melech. So he doesn't want it, even though he knows the prophet told him to be there and he's supposed to be there. Where is he? Read the next pasuk.
וישאלו עוד באדוני הבעוד הלום איש ויאמר אדוני הנה הוא נחבא אל הכלים.
This is very interesting. He is hiding by the kelim. What does kelim mean? Tools, garments. He sees himself as a keli. He doesn't see he's with a kelim. This whole thing, he doesn't see why he should be there. He doesn't feel worthy because he really isn't worthy yet. It's a prediction, it's a prophetic prediction. So he's kind of being forced out of it. Vayarutsu, right? Go on, Vayarutsu.
וירוסו ויקחו משם ויתייסר בתוך העם ויבא מכל העם משכמו ומעלה.
This imagery is stunning. Every time I read it, it's like the best, better than any art. So he's being forced out of hiding from among the kelim, which some people think is garments. Others think it's like war tools, but he's trying to hiding among the baggage, right, among the stuff. He's being forced out, so he feels that he doesn't belong. Inside, his confidence is not there. He doesn't feel that he should be there. But as soon as he's brought out, he is head and shoulders above everyone else, and everyone's, wow, this guy is so impressive. So sometimes the person who seems like the most impressive, right? And people believe in him. Inside, he's hollow, he's empty, he's fearful, and he doesn't feel he's worthy. And that's the irony that you can't escape. Go on.
יאמר שמואל אל כל העם הראיתם אשר בחר בו אדוני כי אין כמוהו בכל העם ויריעו כל העם ויאמרו יחי המלך.
So over here, even Shmuel, he kind of joins in the people in getting caught up in the superficial vision of what a king is. Look at this impressive, beautiful, tall man. He's our king. And then everyone's like, oh, the king, long live the king. But inside Shaul, he's in shock. He doesn't know what's going on. He probably doesn't even hear it. He's in a trance right now, right? Because he doesn't see, why do I deserve this, right? And this is just like the high point of this coronation ceremony. And it's the beginning of a whole different period in biblical history and in human history. And now, Pasuk Kaf He, go on.
מדבר שמואל אל העם את משפט המלוכה ויכתוב בספר וינח לפני אדוני וישלח שמואל את כל העם איש לביתו.
Okay, so this is going to be very interesting as well, if you notice the details. So now, okay, we've just had the ceremony. Everyone said this is going to be our king. He was anointed. He had prophecy. He ran away. He hid. We dragged him out and did this whole ceremony with him. Now Shmuel writes down a list of the laws of the king, right? Which we discussed earlier, the rights that the king has, the duties that the people have to the king to the people, and so on. And now everyone goes home as if nothing happened. Nothing changes, right? In the next pasuk, V'gam Shaul.
שאול הלך לביתו גבעתה וילכו עמו החיל אשר נגע אלוהים בליבם.
Shaul there was no king before. He doesn't step into the palace, doesn't wear the crown, he just goes back to his farm, right? Like nothing happened. And then a group of people who God touched their hearts, they followed him. They said, we should be with this guy now. We should follow him. So he goes home with his group of people, No one really knows what's next. Okay, everything seems a little bit it's different, not like it was yesterday, but yet it's still the same, right? Everyone goes back to their home.
As far as he's concerned, that's the show's over, everybody go home.
Everyone go home, but now what? Now we're going to see how this plays out, right? Go on.
ובני בנייה אמרו מה יושיענו זה ויבשו ולא הביאו לו מנחה ויהי כמחריש.
So there were these Belial people. Belial is I started researching the term Belial this week, right? So we discussed it in the past that it means Belial, with no one above you. But in ancient, like Canaanite languages, it seems to be there was this demonic force of Belial. It was a type of demon. So it was a way of calling someone demonic. But we digress. These. No, it was a different demon. I think it's like a different demon. I forget which one. There's a demon named Belial. I forget what his deal was, but it was like a demon they believed in at the time. Idolaters did. And Bnei Belial was a way to say people who were like demonic, right? People who aren't in control of their own behavior. They're just these like robots, robotic, demonic people, AI people, NPCs. And so these people, they're like, oh, who's this guy? He can't do anything. We don't need Shaul. He's going to save us. Obviously, you guys are just imagining things. Now, what's interesting is Shaul he's like, okay, Machrish is quiet. He doesn't care because he doesn't really disagree with them. He's like, I don't know if I can save people. So he doesn't see himself as worthy of defending his honor. He doesn't see himself as a king. All this is very new. All this is very promising. And next week, we're going to continue to chapter 11. Does anyone have any questions or comments about what we did today?
It's not simple to be a king. It's very.
It's the worst.
Because in the beginning we need to fix ourselves before to think about the other people.
Yeah.
In this beginning, it's very, very difficult. So for the next step, we are always to need to make this sirut nefesh and to.
Also, the fact that the people are asking for a king when they're not fully aware of what they're asking for, right? And where it's rebelling against God, that means the king they're going to have and the way he's going to function isn't going to be perfect, because there is no such thing as this leader who will save you. Like, we really need to save ourselves. The leader is an expression of what's within us. So if it's not within us to redeem ourselves, then there will not be a redeemer. The redeemer, it's not this Jesus that will redeem you and your faith in the redeemer is what will help. It's not a hook that magically, I know it's an enticing idea, and billions of people in the world find it inspiring. And even us Jews, when times of difficulty, we found these ideas inspiring too, that someone is going to kind of magically yank you out of hell, yank you out of pain and confusion and the challenges that are within you. But no, the leader you're going to have is going to be a real expression of what you're about. And Shaul is a fair expression of what the people were like at the time, as was David and so on. And that's why this story is so complex and beautiful.
Was so big Talmid Chacham, Shaul.
Yes.
Before he made some pilgrims.
In Talmid Chacham, in the way that people at the time were Chacham.
Was very.
It wasn't for nothing that he was chosen. What about you guys online? Any questions? Do I need to unmute you? Or you want to type questions? Or we're good? We good?